You're not even her real granddaughter. My dad growled, his voice jagged with disgust. You're not getting a cent. Only true blood gets the family fortune. I froze mid-step in my grandmother's study, the scent of old books and cedar wax triggering 1,000 memories. The room felt like a cathedral of her legacy walls, lined with vintage encyclopedias, her signature lavender stationery still resting on the antique desk. It hadn't even been a week since Grandma Violetta's funeral, and already my dad was torching what was left of the family peace. What are you even talking about? I asked, though my chest already knew the answer. Dad, no. Nolan Reyes smirked and gestured to the oil portrait above the fireplace, where Grandma stood regal in her navy peacoat. Violetta cared about you. I'll give her that. But caring doesn't change biology. Once the lawyer confirms you're not my daughter, you're out. You get nothing. His words hit like a slap. For 28 years, I believed Nolan was my father. Cold, controlling, withholding, but still my father. Now standing in the room where I'd spent every Sunday of my childhood sipping tea and solving crossword puzzles with Grandma, he was rewriting my entire existence. Are you really doing this now? I whispered. After everything she did for me, she made a mistake, a sentimental one. But the estate lawyer Hugo and I are on the same page. The will gets read next Monday. You're welcome to sit in and witness, but don't get your hopes up. He turned to leave, the scent of his cologne clashing with the old wood and ink that filled the room. The second the door shut, I dropped into her chair and stared at the framed photo of me and Grandma, our last tea together, her hand gently resting on mine. My phone buzzed on the desk. A message from my mother, Camila. We need to talk, tonight, just you and me. I didn't breathe for a full minute. If Nolan wasn't my real father, then who was? And why was this secret exploding now, right when Grandma's estate was in play? I met Mom that evening at her usual safe place, a small Cuban cafe tucked between an insurance office and a laundromat. She looked tired, her curls limp from humidity, and her eyes rimmed with guilt. I didn't want you to find out like this, she said, before I even sat down. So it's true, I asked. She nodded. Nolan's not your biological father. He knew. He's always known. My heart sank. Then who is? Camilla sighed and stared into her untouched espresso. His name is Diego Morales. He's your uncle, Nolan's younger brother. I blinked. What? Diego and I, before I married Nolan, we were in love. We were young. I thought it would last. But then Diego left for a research position in Japan. We promised to make long-distance work, but it didn't. Exactly. Nolan comforted me. I was vulnerable. We were together briefly, but when I found out I was pregnant, I knew it had to be Diego's. The dates, the timing, it all fit. Nolan insisted otherwise. He proposed. Said he'd raise the child as his own, and I thought I was doing the right thing. It was like the room tipped sideways. So Diego doesn't know net. He doesn't? She whispered. I thought I was protecting everyone. Maybe I was just protecting myself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, reliving every cold glance Nolan ever gave me. Every time he introduced my half-brothers, Rafi and Leo, with pride, then muttered, and that's just Maya when it came to me. Suddenly, everything made a twisted kind of sense. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I messaged Diego, can we meet? It's about Grandma and family. Diego Morales lived in a third-floor walk-up near Fairmount Park, surrounded by journals and microscopes and 0 photos of his brother. He looked at me with a confused warmth. You've got Violetta's eyes, he said, handing me a cup of mint tea. I need to ask you something, I said, voice shaking. Did you and my mother, were you together before she married Nolan? His face tensed. Yes, she never told you. No, but I think I'm your daughter. The words dropped between us like a bomb. I watched his face shift through shock, grief, and something deeper. Hope. Your mother never said a word, he whispered. I need a DNA test. Fast. Nolan's trying to erase me from the will, and he's using bloodlines to do it. He nodded, stunned but steady. Then let's get the truth on paper. Within 24 hours, we'd visited a private lab that promised results in 72 hours. 3 days to possibly unravel decades of lies. While we waited, I made one more call to Grandma's personal lawyer, Carla UN. I can't discuss the will's content, she said, But Violetta made a lot of intentional updates the month before she passed. Very intentional. That gave me hope. Until I received an email the next morning, the will reading has been postponed. Challenge pending. Identity verification required for one named beneficiary. Nolan wasn't just bluffing, he was throwing legal grenades. And he was just getting started. I should have known Nolan wouldn't fight fair. The man couldn't stomach losing control, especially not to a woman he never fully claimed as his own. His obsession with bloodlines wasn't about legacy, it was about power. So when I saw the court filing, delaying the will, reading claiming uncertain identity of beneficiary Maya Reyes, I knew he was scared. He was throwing red tape over the truth, hoping I'd panic. I didn't. I was done being scared of a man who never saw me. I spent those 3 days doing what Grandma always told me to do, plan not react. I triple-checked the lab paperwork. Diego's sample, mine, chain of custody, all legit. I wrote out the timeline, notes from my mother, recorded our last conversation just in case. I even contacted Carla's paralegal for hints. She couldn't share anything official, but her hang in there and knowing tone said everything. Grandma had prepared for this. She saw it coming. When the DNA results landed in my inbox that Friday morning, I didn't open them right away. I stared at the file like it was a bomb because it was. One that could either blow Nolan's plan apart or bury me under another layer of doubt. I finally clicked, scanned. Stopped at the line, probability of paternity, 99.99997%. Diego Morales was my biological father. No more questions, no more hesitation. My hands trembled, but my chest felt solid for the first time in days. My body already knew what the test confirmed. Nolan Reyes wasn't my father, never had been. And that meant everything he'd built his argument on was a lie. Diego called an hour later. I hadn't sent him the results yet, but he already knew. You don't need to say anything, he said. I knew when you walked through my door. He paused. I've missed 28 years of your life, Maya. That's on me. But I'm here now. I'm not letting him erase you. And just like that, I had backup. Real backup. Not a weapon. A father. That afternoon, I sent a certified letter to Carla confirming my paternity results. I attached notarized copies, marked them for the estate file. It was official. Diego Morales was Violetta's son. I was her biological granddaughter. The very blood Nolan had tried to use against me was now the key that unlocked the door he'd tried to slam shut. But I wasn't naive. Blood didn't scare Nolan. Exposure did. So when I got a message that evening from his lawyer, well, former lawyer, now I knew he'd found out. We'd like to discuss a private resolution, the message read. Potential settlement in lieu of prolonged legal review. Translation, they wanted to buy me off before I made things worse for them. I declined. Politely, but firmly. I didn't want a slice of hush money. I wanted what Grandma meant for me to have and what she'd likely structured to protect. Diego and I met the next morning at the cafe where this all started. He was wearing a navy blazer that didn't quite match his jeans. He looked tired but focused. They're panicking, he said before I sat. Nolan's calling old family friends, trying to dig up anything that discredits you. I shrugged. He already did. Problem is it backfired. Diego smiled. You have Violetta's spine. She'd be proud. We agreed to go into the will reading as a team. Not to provoke, just to stand firm. Our plan was simple, confirm biological ties, present documentation, and let the truth settle where it landed. If Grandma's will mirrored what we suspected, if she'd anticipated Nolan's move and written around it, then everything would shift. But if it didn't, we'd be ready. We weren't there for drama. We were there for truth. What we didn't expect was Nolan's next move. Saturday night, I got a knock at my apartment. It was Carla's assistant, Erin. She looked pale. You need to see this, she said, handing me a thick envelope. Inside were copies of another set of documents. DNA results, different lab, different date, but still my name, my sample. Without my consent. He took it from your glass at the funeral luncheon, she said. Illegally. The results, obviously rigged, claimed I was unrelated to both Nolan and Diego. Sloppy, rushed, but enough to muddy the waters if unchallenged. Nolan wasn't just playing dirty. He was betting on confusion, on delay, on exhaustion. I sat back, mind racing. He's going to present this at the reading. Aaron nodded. He thinks it'll block you long enough to push for trust control. And Carla? I asked. Aaron hesitated. She's not well, hospitalized again. Pneumonia. I knew Nolan had something to do with it. Nothing provable, but I'd seen this pattern before. Create chaos, undermine, distract, then strike. I stared at the false documents and felt something unexpected calm. He was desperate. That meant he was losing, and desperate men make mistakes. I'd let him walk into that reading with fake papers and hollow arrogance. Then I'd light a match with the real truth. The next day, Diego received a call from an old family friend. A nurse who'd worked with Violetta for years. Your mother knew, she said, about Nolan, that he was adopted. Diego's voice cracked as he relayed the conversation to me. They took him in after years of infertility. I didn't even know. Does he? I asked. No, but Violetta did. And her trust. It's based on bloodline. Strictly. I felt the ground tilt. So if he's not biologically hers, then by his own logic, he's disqualified. Diego nodded. Exactly. The irony was sharp enough to taste. Nolan, obsessed with purity of blood, had no Blackwell, or rather Rhea's blood at all. I spent the rest of that Sunday reviewing every detail, every document, every possibility. By Monday morning, I was ready. Dressed in a dark green blouse Grandma once bought me, I walked into the reading not as a lost girl looking for validation, but as Violetta's granddaughter. Not in name, in blood, in truth, Diego at my side. Carla miraculously recovered enough to attend walking slowly, but with purpose. Nolan barely glanced at me, his hands clenched around a leather folder. My mother sat behind me, her presence like armor. Carla opened the meeting. Before we begin, I've been asked to read a letter from Violetta Reyes. It is sealed, dated 1 month before her passing. Nolan's eyes twitched. He hadn't expected this. Carla unfolded the letter, her voice clear. To those gathered in this room. If you're hearing this, then the question of lineage has been raised. Let me be blunt. I have always known that Nolan is not my biological child. That truth, though painful, does not change my love for him. But he has used that love to hurt others. My granddaughter Maya is Diego's daughter. She is my blood. And I have amended my estate accordingly. The room was silent. You could feel the shift in air, like a storm settling. Carla continued reading. To Maya, you are exactly who I hoped you'd become. Do not let anyone erase you. This family's legacy does not lie in names. It lies in truth. My hands were shaking, but I didn't look at Nolan. I didn't need to. I already knew what I'd see, the rage, the disbelief, the fear. His empire crumbling not because I attacked it, but because it was built on lies. And truth has a way of breaking through. Tomorrow we would learn the full breakdown of Grandma's estate. But today the truth was mine. And it was enough. I don't remember the exact moment Nolan stood up. 1 second Carla was finishing Grandma's letter, the next, his chair screeched across the floor and his voice exploded into the silence like shrapnel. That letter means nothing. It's emotional drivel, not legal fact. He waved the forged DNA report like a talisman, his face red and shining under the chandelier. I have documentation, legally certified, unlike the soap opera confession. No one moved. Not Carla, not Diego, not even me. I didn't have to speak. The room was already shifting. What Nolan didn't understand was that the moment Grandma's letter was read, the real battle wasn't about papers, it was about perception. And perception was unraveling him. Carla calmly leaned forward. You'll have a chance to present your concerns, but this reading will proceed according to the instructions Violetta left, including the revised documentation attached to her final letter. Nolan laughed loud, forced manic. You people are really buying this. She was nearly 90, probably drugged when she wrote it. And you, he pointed a trembling hand at me. You manipulated her. You wormed your way into her head, made her change things. Carla's eyes narrowed. Enough, Nolan. Sit down or leave. That last word hit him hard. Leave. A man who'd spent his life barking orders suddenly reminded that power doesn't come from volume. It comes from truth. He dropped back into his seat, seething, and for once silent. The will reading resumed. Carla's voice was steady, deliberate. She began with the personal items, jewelry, artwork, letters, gifts for family members carefully selected. My mother received Grandma's first engagement ring tucked inside a handwritten note. For every choice you made to protect what mattered. My eyes stung. She squeezed my hand. Nolan received a travel journal, just that. A slim, worn notebook filled with postcards from Violetta's trips abroad. No property, no money, just memory. Rafi and Leo, my half-brothers, received shares in a small vineyard Grandma had quietly invested in years ago. The kind of gift that appreciates over time if you're patient. I wondered if they'd understand the symbolism. Probably not. They weren't bad people. Just raised by someone who taught them legacy was a prize, not a responsibility. When Carla reached my name, the pause in her voice was barely noticeable. To Maya Reyes, my granddaughter by blood, by spirit, by love, I leave the following: the Summerhill estate, including its holdings, trust portfolio, and attached legacy accounts. The primary residence is to remain in the family under her care, along with all historical records, letters, and family archives. I didn't breathe. The Summerhill estate wasn't just a house. It was the seat of the Reyes family history, built by my great-grandfather, lived in by 4 generations. It was where Grandma raised Diego, where I'd spent every Sunday as a child, where Nolan had once held court like a self-declared monarch. Now it was mine. Nolan shot out of his chair again. "You can't be serious!" he yelled. "You're giving her everything." Based on some fantasy letter and a rigged test. Carla didn't even flinch. "You presented an illegally obtained DNA report. We have verified court-admissible results, signed, certified, and aligned with Violetta's documented knowledge. Unless you intend to challenge the will in court and risk exposing your own adoption, I suggest you reconsider your tone." His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No words came out, just breath. Finally, he sank back down, smaller than I'd ever seen him, like a balloon slowly losing air. The room emptied slowly after that. Rafi and Leo avoided my gaze. Not out of malice, more like confusion. They'd grown up believing we were equals. Now they weren't sure where we stood. My mother lingered, reluctant to leave until I did. Diego walked beside me, one hand on my shoulder. Outside, the autumn air had cooled. The mansion loomed behind us, not as a fortress anymore, but as a home mine now. I turned to him. "Do you think this is over?" He gave a slow nod, then shook his head. "Legally, maybe, but people like Nolan don't go quietly. He'll twist it into something else. Publicly or privately. That's how he survives." He paused. "But you don't need to play the game. Just live the truth." That night, I didn't celebrate. I didn't drink or dance or call friends. I walked through Summerhill's quiet halls, touching the oak panels. The framed portraits, the old armchair where Grandma used to read. I sat at her desk, the one she'd once called her battlefield of ideas, and read through her annotated Bible, her handwritten notes in the margins. One page had just 4 words. "Truth always finds light." I believed her, but I also knew light can blind as much as it reveals. That week, Diego moved into the guest house, not to take over, just to be nearby. For the first time, we were rebuilding something, not out of obligation, but out of want. We talked for hours some nights, about the years we missed, about what kind of father he wanted to be now. He didn't push. He let me set the pace. I realized I didn't need him to make up for lost time. I just needed him to stay. Meanwhile, Nolan's silence became louder than his outbursts. He stopped answering calls from my brothers, stopped responding to Harrison, his old lawyer. Word spread through the family circles. Whispers of disgrace, of betrayal. Some believed his story, others didn't. Most just moved on. He hated that most, being ignored. I got one letter from him a week after the reading. No return address, no greeting. Just a single line. "You always were the outsider." I folded it once, then again, and placed it in the back of Grandma's journal. Let it live there, not as a wound, but a fossil. The more I settled into Summerhill, the more I saw the layers Grandma had hidden. Letters from old friends, financial records, audio tapes labeled legacy notes. She hadn't just prepared a will. She'd curated an archive, a roadmap. She knew this fight would come. She also knew who would win not by force but by patience. One tape ended with her soft voice saying, "Maya, if you're listening to this, then the truth won. And if the truth wins, you don't need to." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I didn't expect to hear from him again. After the will reading, after the legal dust had barely settled, and the truth had been spoken aloud in a room full of witnesses, I thought Nolan would disappear. Pride is a funny thing. It makes some people retreat, makes others self-destruct. But Nolan didn't disappear. He regrouped. And when he re-emerged, it wasn't loud. It was calculated. Like a cold front you don't see until your bones start to ache. It started with a letter, but not to me. He sent it to the county probate office. A formal motion to challenge the execution of the estate based on mental incapacity and undue influence. In other words, he wanted the courts to believe Grandma was too old to think clearly when she changed her will and that I had somehow manipulated her into rewriting the family legacy. The irony made my stomach twist. Nolan, the man who used intimidation as punctuation, was accusing me of coercion. I sat in Carla's office, letter in hand, reading the lines again, trying not to let my anger cloud my clarity. Carla adjusted her glasses. "He's playing a long game. This isn't about winning in court, it's about wearing you down." "I won't break," I said, and I meant it, but even the strongest roots feel the storm. We filed a response, including medical evaluations from Grandma's physician dated just weeks before she passed. The doctor had noted her exceptional lucidity for her age. We attached her audio tapes, the ones where she clearly articulated her intentions. Carla included affidavits from two of Grandma's old friends, both retired attorneys who had reviewed her updated will and confirmed she was of sound mind and firm purpose. The evidence was solid. But Nolan wasn't aiming for logic, he was aiming for doubt. And for a moment it worked. Not because I questioned the truth, but because I started to question the cost of defending it. I had just started building a rhythm with Diego, slow, steady conversations that felt like healing more than catching up. I was learning the contours of a relationship we'd never had a chance to form. We cooked dinner together. We argued about what to watch. We laughed at how alike we were, both stubborn, both quiet thinkers. Every time I saw him smile, it felt like reclaiming something stolen. I didn't want to spend that time buried in court transcripts and family mud, but then I found it tucked inside a velvet pouch in one of Grandma's antique trunks, hidden behind a false drawer panel in the upstairs study. A small envelope marked only with my name. Inside was a letter, short but not rushed, written in her delicate cursive with a single pressed lavender tucked inside like a signature. "Maya," it read, "if you've found this, then Nolan has done what I feared he would. He believes legacy is control. But legacy is memory, and memory can't be rewritten by court filings. What I gave you wasn't revenge. It was restoration. Not because you deserved it more, but because you were the only one who would carry it forward without burning it down. Tell the truth, don't perform it. And remember, some ghosts aren't meant to be exorcised, just understood." That last line stayed with me for days. I didn't tell Diego about the letter. Not right away. I needed to hold it close like a match I wasn't ready to strike. Instead, I returned to the archives. Grandma's notes, her annotations. Her journal entries were more than reflections, they were blueprints. She had been documenting everything. And one night, while flipping through a folder labeled House Transfer 1972, I found something unexpected. A set of adoption records, not for Nolan, for someone else. A name I didn't recognize: Isabella. Born in 1967, adopted in 1969, mother Violeta Reyes. The paperwork wasn't hidden, but it wasn't labeled either. It was almost like she wanted me to find it, but only when I was ready to understand it. I sat with that name for a long time. Isabella. Another child. Another thread in the tapestry I didn't know existed. I asked Diego if he knew. He didn't. He looked shocked, then quiet, then deeply sad. "She must have had her before I was born," he murmured. "Maybe she gave her up. Maybe it wasn't her choice." We reached out to Carla together. She made a few discreet inquiries. 3 days later, she handed me a slim manila file. Current legal name, Isabel Tron. Occupation archivist. Location, Vermont. I stared at the name, the profession, the quiet symmetry of it. An archivist, a keeper of stories, like me. Diego read my face. You're going to find her, aren't you? I nodded. If she's part of this family, she deserves to know what happened, even if she wants nothing to do with it. And if she does, I exhaled. Then the story gets bigger, and maybe more true. The trip to Vermont was quiet. I didn't call ahead. I didn't want to ambush her, but I also didn't want to give her time to shut the door before I got there. Her office was tucked inside a small local museum filled with hand-labeled boxes and rotating exhibits about the town's railway history. She looked exactly how I imagined. Soft-spoken, sharp eyes, hands that moved with precision. I introduced myself without fanfare, told her about Violetta, about Nolan, about the estate and what it had unearthed. She listened, not interrupting once. When I finished, she stood, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a small tin, and returned with a faded photo. It was a picture of a younger Violetta, holding a baby girl. I've had this my whole life, Isabel said. I didn't know her name until today. We didn't hug, we didn't cry, we just sat. Two women connected by blood and a lifetime of silence. She didn't want the estate, she didn't want to fight Nolan. But she asked for one thing: the chance to visit Summerhill, to walk the halls, to feel where she came from, even if it wasn't where she stayed. When she came a week later, Diego greeted her at the door, like he'd known her forever. I watched them talk in the study, her calm curiosity, his nervous energy. It was the first time in my life I'd seen Diego unsure of his words. It made him real in a new way. After Isabel left, she sent a single postcard. Thank you for not gatekeeping history. Families heal when someone opens the door and doesn't force everyone to walk through it. That night, I walked the grounds of Summerhill alone. The leaves were starting to fall gold and soft beneath my feet. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "You were right, Grandma. Some ghosts just need to be seen." Nolan didn't show up for the hearing. The probate judge dismissed his challenge without ceremony. Carla called me that afternoon, her voice calm but tired. "He didn't even bother to send representation," she said. "Just silence. That tells me two things: he knows he can't win, and he's choosing a different kind of fight." I knew what she meant. Nolan wasn't the kind of man who let go. He just waited like erosion, slow, steady, sure. But erosion only works if the structure's weak. And I wasn't anymore. Summerhill was no longer a battlefield. It was becoming something else. A place of breath, of memory, of new beginnings that didn't have to erase the old. Diego planted a fig tree in the back garden, said it reminded him of their grandmother's home in Spain. My mother began visiting more often, not to apologize again, but just to be near me. She helped me dust the shelves, label photo albums, laugh over how terrible our family was at posing for portraits. Isabel sent more postcards, each one short, direct, and thoughtful like her. She wasn't part of our daily lives, but her presence lingered like wind over still water. I thought that would be the end. But then in early winter, I got a call from a nurse at a private care facility in Bucks County. Nolan had checked himself in 3 weeks ago under an assumed name. No emergency, no injuries, just a diagnosis. Early onset dementia. The nurse said he asked for one visitor, me. I sat with the decision for 3 days. The girl I had been lonely, desperate for his approval, wanted to go running. To see his face, to hear something, anything that resembled remorse. But the woman I'd become knew better. Forgiveness doesn't need an audience, and closure isn't a performance. Still I went, not for him, for the story. For the root that needed digging up, not to be yanked, but to be examined, understood. The facility was quiet, clean, no buzz of machines, just soft music and windows full of winter trees. They led me to his room. He was seated near the window, facing away. I cleared my throat. "It's Maya." He turned slowly. His face had changed, softer, thinner. But his eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, but now with something behind them that looked like recognition and regret at war with each other. "I wondered if you'd come," he said. "I didn't come to fight." He nodded once. "Good, I wouldn't win." There was a silence between us, but not the kind that stings. Just space, air that hadn't been filled with noise in too long. "Why now?" I asked. Because the story's ending, he said, and you're the only one left who knows how it really began. That startled me. The Nolan I knew didn't admit endings or need storytellers. But dementia was a cruel editor. It peeled back layers of performance, left the bones of memory. He spoke slowly, like someone trying to place a tune they half remembered. Your grandmother was the first person who ever saw through me. Not in a cruel way, just she saw what I was trying to hide. What were you hiding? I asked, not accusing, just curious. That I wasn't a Reyes. Not really. I was a child they took in after 2 miscarriages and a stillbirth. They told me I was chosen, that it made me special, but every time they looked at Diego, I saw the difference. They looked at him like he was theirs. They looked at me like I was a gift from a stranger. His voice cracked just a little. And when you were born, you had her eyes, Violetta's and Diego's. It scared me. I didn't speak. I let him finish. I tried to build something, make the name mine, make the power mine. But the harder I pushed, the more I lost control. And when she left it all to you, I realized she'd been choosing all along, just not me. For a moment, I didn't know what to feel. He'd hurt me. Years of cold dismissals, emotional exile, legal warfare. But now he sat in front of me, hollowed out by time, stripped of his defenses. You made yourself an outsider, I said gently. You stood at the gate with the keys and still refused to come inside. He looked away. I know. We didn't hug. We didn't make peace the way movies teach us to. But when I stood to leave, he reached for my wrist, not with force, just contact. You're the only thing I ever feared losing, he said. Because you were the only thing that proved I never truly belonged. I pulled back, not coldly, just enough. I don't need to belong to anyone, I said. And neither did you. I walked out without looking back. Not out of pride, but because looking back was his habit, not mine. Winter settled into spring. The probate court closed its final files. The family gossip faded into other scandals. Summerhill became less of a symbol and more of a home. I started hosting weekend workshops on historical preservation. Small, quiet groups, people curious about memory, about restoration. Isabel came to one quietly observing, more than participating. Afterward, she slipped me a note. You're not keeping the past, you're tending it. I pinned that quote above my desk. Diego and I created a digital archive of Grandma's legacy. Letters, photos, voice recordings. We called it Reyes Rooted. It wasn't flashy, but it felt alive, a map, not a museum. One afternoon, I wandered out to the fig tree. It had survived the frost, tiny green shoots pushing against the bark. I sat on the bench beneath it and closed my eyes. I didn't hear Grandma's voice. I didn't feel some magical wind. But I did feel something settle, like a door had closed, not locked, just no longer needed. The family didn't fall apart because of me. It cracked because the truth had been sealed too long. And when it finally breathed, it didn't explode, it exhaled. I wasn't there to inherit power. I was there to plant peace. The first summer at Summerhill didn't feel like a victory lap. It felt like a long, quiet morning after a storm. No thunder, no debris, just stillness. A kind of peace that didn't ask for applause. The estate no longer felt like a place I inherited. It felt like a place I remembered, like some part of me had always belonged there, even when I was made to feel like a visitor. I spent mornings with the windows open, the scent of lavender, and old books drifting through the rooms. Birds nested near the eaves. Diego started keeping bees out back. Mom planted herbs in the old stone garden. Some days it felt like we were restoring something bigger than a house. We were rebuilding trust, slow, careful, and without ceremony. The town started to change its tone too. Neighbors who once kept a polite distance now waved longer. A few asked for tours of the estate. Teachers reached out about field trips. Local historical groups invited me to speak. It wasn't the kind of recognition I used to chase. It was quieter, realer. I learned to appreciate silence, not as absence but as space. Not everything needed to be said aloud to matter. Some things only needed to be lived well. One afternoon, Isabel came down for a visit, not for a meeting, just to be. She brought her daughter Lena, 12 years old, all freckles and confidence. She wandered the halls with curiosity and no shame. She asked questions that would have made Nolan roll his eyes. Did ghosts live here? Were the paintings cursed? Why are old people so obsessed with hallways? I loved every minute of it. We spent the evening in the backyard. Diego grilled fish, Mom made rice. Isabel helped Lena write names in a notebook tracing our family tree. Some names she knew, others she didn't. And then she asked me, what happens to a family that forgets its own story? I thought for a moment, then answered softly, the same thing that happens to a tree with no roots. It still stands for a while, but the first strong wind reminds it what it lost. She nodded, didn't say anything more, just underlined the word roots in her journal and moved on. Nolan passed quietly in the early days of autumn. No funeral, no headlines, just a single legal notice sent to Carla. He left behind a safety deposit box with 3 items: an old passport, a wedding photo from when he married my mother, and a letter addressed to me. The letter wasn't long. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't blame. He just wrote, I never knew how to love you without needing you to prove you deserved it. That was my failing, not yours. You were always enough. I read it once. Then I folded it, placed it in a drawer in Grandma's old desk, and let it rest there. Not to forget, but to stop holding it. Time passed like breath. Not rushed, not slow, just consistent. Rafi and Leo reached out more. Our conversations were awkward at first, like strangers trying to remember why they once called each other family, but we didn't force it. We met for coffee, swapped stories about childhood memories we'd each experienced from different corners of the same room. I learned Rafi had a son now. Leo had started therapy. They didn't apologize for Nolan, and I didn't ask them to. We were all grown, all damaged, but none of us beyond repair. That winter, I started writing. Not a memoir, not a tell-all, just memories. Stories Grandma used to tell. Anecdotes from my childhood. Observations about how pain echoes across generations, and how healing often arrives in whispers, not declarations. I didn't know what I would do with it. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. The act of writing was enough. It was like laying stones on a path I'd never walked but needed to build anyway. The last room I restored in the estate was the smallest one, a narrow space on the 3rd floor with slanted ceilings and a single window that looked out over the orchard. It had been used for storage, mostly forgotten, but I turned it into a reading room. No electronics, just shelves, a worn armchair, a rug, and a small writing desk. I called it the listening room because that's what it taught me to do: listen. To myself, to the house, to the quiet lessons buried in the wood. Some nights, I'd sit there for hours, just breathing in the stillness. And in that stillness, I'd think about the strange symmetry of it all. How Nolan's obsession with purity of blood became his undoing. How Diego, quiet and exiled, returned not to reclaim anything but to connect. How Grandma stitched a legacy not through wealth or reputation, but by telling the truth when it mattered most. And how I, once the outsider, became the keeper of it all. Not because I fought hardest, but because I listened deepest. People ask me now, what did you really inherit? And I never say money or land or even stories. I say peace. Because that's the rarest thing in a family like mine. It didn't come from winning. It came from refusing to fight the same battles that made us bleed. On the anniversary of Grandma's passing, we hosted a small gathering in the garden. Just family, a few close friends. Diego read one of her favorite poems. Isabel brought a photo of their father, which we'd never seen before. My mother laid fresh lavender on the garden stones, and Lena rang a bell we'd found buried in the attic, announcing nothing in particular, just because she wanted to hear something old make noise again. We didn't speak much that evening, just let the dusk settle in. The fig tree had grown strong. Its branches stretched wide, casting shadows across the grass. I stood beneath it, feeling its bark under my fingers, and whispered, "We're still here." Not loud, just enough. Because some things don't need to be shouted, they just need to be true. Legacy. I've learned isn't about blood, or power, or even memory. It's about choice. What you hold, what you let go, what you pass on, not in wealth, but in wisdom. And what I chose to carry wasn't the weight of what came before. It was the clarity of knowing I don't have to repeat it. That's the story. Not of revenge or victory, but of return, of reclamation, of choosing to begin again and again and again until the echoes of old harm are replaced with the sound of quiet, unwavering truth. And that's enough. Story 2. A useless girl. It was never you who was smart. As my family sat in the living room, drinking and acting as if they couldn't hear, my father repeated what he had said. I felt as though I was holding a child's painting as I remained still, the certificate I had been so eager to deliver, gripped tightly in my grasp. Instead of the prize from the regional business competition. Yes, it was. I'm Vanessa Graves, and I've heard versions of that statement throughout my life, and I'm 31 years old. Logan had been more of an exercise in invisibility when growing up in Columbus, Ohio, under my brother's shadow. The golden child was Logan. His scholastic accomplishments, sporting awards, and subsequent commercial endeavors were enthusiastically and proudly honored. My achievements were tossed aside like crumbs from the dinner table, regardless of how important they were. I was considering growing the business dad. In spite of the knot in my gut, I started trying again. Please, Vanessa. My dad cut me off, stroking his forehead, as if my speech were giving him a headache. Your brother recently landed a $1 million deal. Can we take a minute to concentrate on real success? My mother looked at me sympathetically, but she said nothing. Perhaps business isn't your thing, dear, my Aunt Patricia said, giving me a pat on the hand. You were always quite skilled at your small crafts. Little crafts. They saw my tech business, which had been expanding consistently for 3 years as a hobby. I excused myself to the kitchen, leaned on the counter, and took a few deep breaths after giving a courteous nod. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. Eliza, my business partner, texted me. Did you mention the investor meeting to them? I returned the type. Not quite yet. The timing is off. The time would never be right in this house, but I didn't mention that. Long ago, my father, Robert Graves, a self-described business guru and retired engineer, had concluded that I lacked the necessary skills to succeed. Too sentimental, he would say. Not enough strategic. Not CEO material, but my personal fave. My father's joyful laughing pierced the discussion through the doorway as I gathered myself, and I could hear Logan holding court in the living room. My brother gave me a slap on the shoulder, something I couldn't recall ever getting. With a smile that stopped short of my eyes, I put my phone back in my pocket, straightened my shoulders, and returned to the family get-together. They had no idea that this rejection was igniting something inside of me that would soon make them all view me very differently. I got to our little office space the following day, which was in a refurbished warehouse on the outskirts of Columbus's downtown. During my lunch breaks at my prior corporate work, I had scribbled the concept for my startup neurosis on napkins. With 15 workers and technology that was starting to make ripples in the predictive analytics space, we now filled half a floor. Elijah glanced up as soon as I walked in, telling me she could feel the lingering effects of yesterday's family supper. Sliding a coffee across her desk toward me, she remarked, "That bet the same tale, a different day." With gratitude, I accepted the cup in response. You would believe that Logan had conquered world hunger on his own, after securing a contract with the state government. Eliza gave an eye roll. Meanwhile, we're over here changing the way companies think about customer behavior. Nothing significant. In spite of me, I grinned. Eliza and I got along so well because of this. She was aware of the significance of persistent underestimate, as well as the technology. She said that Thursday is the definite date of the investor meeting. Westlake Ventures is interested in seeing the new algorithm work. I corrected her if and when things went smoothly. We will have the funds to expand and directly handle Horizon Data. Our primary rival, Horizon Data, was bigger, more reputable, and ironically, the same organization that had turned down my application for a position 4 years prior. I was advised to investigate something less technical by their CEO. As a continual reminder, the rejection letter was still in my desk drawer. Other reminders came from my childhood home. On the mantelpiece were pictures of Logan getting honors. In the hallway was a framed newspaper piece touting his scholarship at Wharton. My graduation picture was in a dusty book, little viewed and never put on display. When I would return home from college, thrilled about getting accepted into a prestigious tech internship, my father would dismiss it and inquire as to when I would be able to pursue a legitimate profession. My mother just remarked that it must be getting easier these days when I made the dean's list while studying computer science. I had learned to keep my goals and accomplishments hidden away where they couldn't be under my need and to cease expressing them. I had been living in a small flat for 3 years, eating ramen noodles and putting every penny back into NeuroSync. I heard my father's words in my brain while I worked 18-hour days, studied every business book I could find, and learnt from every error. A useless girl. It was never you who was smart. Even with the modern air conditioners humming softly overhead, the Westlake Ventures conference room seemed too warm. Eliza nodded subtly when I looked at her and straightened my blazer. The stakes had never been higher, even though we had rehearsed this presentation a dozen times. I pointed to the screen behind me and said, "As you can see from our projections, the neuroscience algorithm has continuously performed 27% better than industry norms. This translates into a previously unheard-of degree of customer behavior prediction for retail application." The venture capital firm's silver-haired founder, Gregory Westlake, leaned forward a little. "What about your rivals? What is the new platform from Horizon Data like?" This was the question I had expected. The method used by Horizon is based on previous datasets. Real-time emotional reaction indicators are incorporated into our system. They can tell you what customers did yesterday, to put it simply. What they'll do tomorrow, we can tell you. The space moved. As the investors looked at one another, I sensed a shift in energy. Now was the time. The turning moment that I had spent years striving for. Eliza and I were still in disbelief as we were in the foyer 2 hours later. Westlake had committed to more than just investing. Their goal was to spearhead an investment round worth $90 million for NeuroSync. The agreement would establish us as the market leader in consumer predictive technology and completely change our business. "We succeeded," Eliza muttered. A smile appeared on her face, and her normally composed demeanor broke. "Vanessa, in fact, we succeeded." I gave a nod. The exhilaration that got me through the meeting was replaced with an odd numbness. I was preparing a mental list when my phone rang, reminding me that we needed to call the attorneys and the team. My mom was the one. I briefly thought about leaving it on voicemail, but I had to respond out of habit. "Hi there, Vanessa. Remember that next Sunday is your father's retirement celebration. Everyone in the family will be present, and if you weren't, it would appear weird. You are aware of human speech patterns." For a moment, I closed my eyes. "Yes, Mother, I'll be present." "Excellent." Logan just concluded another deal too. At the celebration, he will announce that he has been promoted to vice president. Isn't it fantastic? Would it be possible for you to bring those cookies you once made? Those were usually well-liked. It was almost laughable how drastically different they were. I was negotiating a multi-million-dollar agreement that would transform an industry in one instant. In the next, I was invited to celebrate someone else's accomplishment by bringing cookies. In fact, Mom, by then, I may have some news of my own. "That's lovely, my love. Keep in mind that your father dislikes anything overly sugary. His blood sugar, the doctor says." As she went on, Eliza looked at me. She arched a curious eyebrow, and I simply gave a little shake of my head. I was going to change, but certain things never did. The most demanding week of my career was the week after our successful pitch. As attorneys wrote agreements, days turned into nights. Press releases were meticulously crafted, and term sheets were negotiated. I lived on coffee and willpower, hardly noticing the world outside the maelstrom of anxiety and imminent change. Eliza stormed into my office on Thursday morning when I was going over the final investment agreements. Her normally calm manner gave way to barely controlled enthusiasm. "Did you see it?" She pushed her iPad in my direction and requested. Bleary-eyed from scouring legalese, I looked up. "What are you seeing? The Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, and Forbes are all covering the subject." When I picked up the tablet, my face from the Forbes page was looking back at me. Disruptor alert. Following a historic investment transaction, Vanessa Graves was dubbed the youngest female CEO in the IT industry. I felt sick to my stomach. Next week was scheduled to be the public release date for the news. I immediately skimmed the article, which described the investment agreement and emphasized my progress from startup founder to CEO of what was now regarded as the most exciting IT business in the Midwest after all the paperwork was completed and I had had a chance to inform my family in person. The story had been taken up by a number of other publications, each of which gave it a unique twist. His phone after Eliza departed, anticipating my mother's customary upbeat greeting. My dad replied. He spoke in a clipped tone. "Inhabitants of graves." "Dad, it's me." He interjected, creating a scene in the business pages. "I guess you think we'd be impressed." I blinked, surprised. It wasn't deliberate. The news was released ahead of schedule. Logan has spent years gradually establishing a reputable profession. However, you always had to put on a show, didn't you? The agony of his rejection was familiar. However, something strange happened this time. Anger, a performance. I started this business from nothing, Dad. No relationships, no assistance from relatives, not a single word of support. And now, your name has now appeared in a few articles. Well done. Before reality settles in, we'll see how long it lasts. I tightened my hold on the phone. In actuality, I currently serve as the CEO of a $90 million business that is revolutionizing its sector. It's more than simply a few articles. He lowered his voice to the tone he used when he believed he was giving insight and added, "Listen to me. You're writing a tech bubble that will pop. It always does. Logan has created a strong foundation, something tangible." Suddenly weary with the same old story, I closed my eyes. "I have to leave, Dad. I'll see you on Sunday at the retirement celebration." "Vanessa." I had already hung up before he began. After a minute of stillness, I grabbed my laptop. Maybe it was time to prove my value to my family in a way they couldn't ignore if they couldn't see it for themselves. Sunday came with gusts of wind, an ideal day for an outdoor retirement party in the early summer. After that talk with my father, I had purposefully avoided calling my parents again, allowing the media attention to do the talking. The narrative has expanded over the last several days, with portions on neuroses and my unorthodox route to success appearing on a number of business programs. Sitting in my car outside my parents' suburban house, I watched as friends, neighbors, family, my father's former coworkers, and relatives who had seen me relegated to the background over the years arrived. I inhaled deeply, checked my image in the rearview mirror, repositioned my high-end sunglasses, and got out of my brand-new Jaguar F-Type, which I had purchased yesterday as a congratulations gift to myself. The sleek car, with its humming engine and shiny red paint, was neither subtle nor intended to be. I could feel eyes turning toward me as I took a little tastefully wrapped box from the passenger seat. Always the first to notice anything Cousin sketched. With his mouth agape, Automotive halted the chat. "Is that Vanessa grinning?" I gave him the keys. "Would you mind parking it for me? It's becoming crowded in the driveway." As he accepted the keys, his eyes grew wide, treating them as though they were priceless relics. "Isn't this the V8? There's no mistaking the sound." "Good here," I said, taking pleasure in the way the small group of people beside the garage had turned to gaze. "Just use caution when trimming. It's tradition." I headed into the backyard, where tables were arranged on the grass. The aroma of my mother's well-maintained flower beds blended with the well-known scent of my father's grill. I had changed, yet certain things remained the same. I was first seen by my mother. As she took in my look, her welcome froze on her lips. The sensible, quiet girl they had known was no longer there. I accessorized my fitted cream suit with a striking blue silk shirt, high-end heels, and jewelry that subtly conveyed my accomplishment today. "Vanessa." She succeeded. "At last. You appear different. Thank you." I gave her a cheek kiss as I said, "Dad, where are you?" I had something for him. She indicated the grill where my father was standing in his element, with all of his male friends and family hanging on his every cooking suggestion. I walked toward the gathering, aware of the talk, and as I got closer, I became quieter. "Dad," I remarked, holding out the little bundle. "Cheers to your retirement." He turned and stared at my metamorphosis, his face inscrutable. I briefly feared that he might act out or ignore me once more. Rather, he nodded his acceptance of the present. "There was nothing you needed to bring," he stated sternly. I said, keeping eye contact, I wanted to. After all, my father's retirement, after 30 years, is not something that happens very often. The males in our immediate vicinity, many of whom have obviously read the recent stories about me, observe our interaction with curiosity. As they watched the calm exchange between us, I could detect recognition in their eyes, followed by bewilderment. My father answered, "Well, without opening the present. Before they burn, I should return to these steaks." "Of course," I said with a kind smile. "That is not what we would desire." I heard one of his pals exclaim, "Bob," as I turned to go. "Your kid has been in the news, isn't she?" The chief executive officer? Instead of waiting to hear his answer, I moved to where Logan and his wife Jennifer were standing, both of them watching me come with hardly disguised astonishment. It was quite the entrance. Logan stated in a tone that was a little different from his typical assurance. Maybe uncertainty. "Nice vehicle." "Thanks," I said. "You must also be getting good treatment from business." A promotion to vice president was mentioned by Mom. "Well done." Jennifer interrupted him before he could answer. "We read about your business. It's very amazing. After all these years, why haven't you told anyone what you were working on?" There was a lingering question. Her voice was full of genuine inquiry. "Why hadn't I?" "I did," I replied plainly to Jennifer. "A lot of times. There was nobody to listen to." Logan moved uneasily, obviously recalling the family meals when I tried to bring up my business, and was either ignored or spoken over to his credit. He seems a little embarrassed. Jennifer went on, apparently unaware of the tension or resolved to ignore it. "Well, we're all certainly interested now. That value is the topic of conversation. $90 million. That's amazing." "Vanessa." When she said the sum, I saw the heads swivel at tables nearby. Like ripples in a water, whispers spread. Suddenly, family, friends, and relatives realized how much I had done. "Thank you," I said. Although it has taken a while, the technology is groundbreaking. Businesses' understanding of customer behavior is evolving as a result of us. Logan cleared his throat. "Sometime I would really want to know more about it. We might go out to lunch. Something like that may even be something my firm wants to implement." I didn't miss the irony. I had talked to Logan about a possible collaboration 3 years prior. I was thrilled to show my early prototypes to someone I believed would appreciate their worth. He had refused to advise me to concentrate on something more firmly established. "First, my assistant will get in touch." I answered the courteous business response, now flowing naturally. "We may be able to fit you in, however, our implementation schedule is rather filled for the upcoming quarter." Being treated like any other customer instead of family caused his face to falter. My Aunt Patricia showed up before he could reply, embracing me with her scent. "Why didn't you tell us that you were so successful, Vanessa?" "We didn't know," she said, loud enough to be heard by everyone in the vicinity. Only a few months prior, this aunt had called my company Little Crafts. I made an effort. I continued to grin as I said, "Simply put, there was never a good moment to share." There was a noticeable change in dynamics as the day went on. Previously drawn to Logan, relatives now actively sought me out to inquire about my success secrets, neuroses, and what it was like to be mentioned in Forbes. I replied politely, but with a professional demeanor that was unfamiliar to our family get-togethers. With an expression I couldn't quite interpret, my father stayed by the grill, his domain, and watched this change of his daughter, who was typically ignored. I had gotten him a personalized engraved watch with the words, "To New Beginnings," inscribed on it, but he hadn't opened it yet. Vanessa, love. My father eventually tapped his glass to get attention as dessert was being served. Everyone turned to face him, anticipating the retirement speech he had probably been preparing for months, and the backyard fell silent. "I appreciate everyone's attendance today. It means so much to Joyce and me to have you all here," he said, his voice echoing over the yard, capping a 30-year career. He went on to thank coworkers who had become friends before turning to family, sharing stories from his time as an engineer. Recognitions. Naturally, I'm also proud of my kids. Logan was just elevated to vice president at Hamilton Financial, where he is building a name for himself. After a courteous round of applause, Logan nodded gratefully. "Vanessa, too." My father went on a little stuttering as all eyes shifted to me, who had clearly been subtly constructing something that none of us entirely comprehended. The anxiety was evident when the yard fell silent. I waited patiently, meeting my father's stare. She was the emotional one I always claimed. Few joined, he added, laughing a little. I think I could have misjudged her potential because of that emotional intelligence. There was no apology, not even close. However, it was my father's first public admission that he could have been mistaken about me. I noticed something new in many of the eyes of the family members and friends who had assembled as they lifted their glasses. Show respect. Under strings of patio lights, the retirement celebration went on into the evening with lively talks. With a renewed sense of confidence, I went between groups. The uncomfortable relative who was confined to the sidelines is no more. It was interesting to watch the small change in dynamics. Previously, silent relatives suddenly listened intently to what I said. As the evening wore on, I managed to spend some time with my father by myself. He was drinking whiskey and looking out at the garden from the edge of the yard. My mom had been perfecting for years. I pointed to the tiny parcel that was still unopened on the present table and remarked, "You haven't opened your gift." He gave me a glance, truly took a look at me. I wanted to wait till it was quieter, maybe for the first time in years. Despite my suspicion that he had just not wanted to open it in front of everyone, I nodded and accepted this explanation. Following our last conversation, finally he said, "CEO." Indeed. Of a business worth 90 million, indeed. He was the youngest lady to twirl the ice in his glass. Based on those articles, that's the saying. There was a long silence, overwhelmed by decades of ignorance and contempt. He said, "I don't understand it. In my day's industry, this tech stuff was simple items. Services you could see you could hold." I thought about describing how our algorithm operated and how it was transforming a whole sector, but I decided it wouldn't make a difference. This has nothing to do with comprehending my business. It had to do with his seeing me at last. "Dad, you don't have to know the technology. Just know that I created something worthwhile and enduring." After giving a hesitant nod, he pointed to the front of the home. "That vehicle? That is quite a claim." I grinned. The intention was not to make a statement. It was intended as a prize for years of arduous labor. Still, he said, pulling up like that, his voice now lower. "You knew what you were doing after reading all those articles I did," I confessed. The new NeuroSync headquarters in downtown Columbus opened 2 months after my father's retirement celebration. From our modest beginnings in that shared workplace, the shining glass structure served as a tangible reminder of how far we had gone. The ribbon-cutting celebration brought together local business leaders, employees, and investors. And my whole family showed up, which surprised me. Before the ceremony started, my mother gave me a firm hug. "Vanessa, we're so proud of you. If we didn't display it earlier, I apologize." Realizing the sincerity of her remarks, I gave her a hug in return. She had always been torn between wanting to help me and my father's rejection. She didn't have to make a decision today. Logan, who appeared both intrigued and a little uneasy among the tech throng, came up next. "This is amazing, sis. Really, I didn't realize you were developing this. That's because you didn't inquire." I answered, but success had mended those old scars without the resentment that would have tainted such a statement months before. Then my dad was there, standing clumsily close to the door, admiring the modern building and the enthusiasm. I gave him a watch, which he wore. I saw a tiny yet important gesture. Aware of the eyes following me, I approached him. "The CEO is in her element." I said, "Thank you for coming." He gave a rather quiet nod. It wouldn't have escaped my notice. I had the option to stop there. Our fragile peace. I did have one thing to say, though. For my own closure, not out of animosity. "You know, Dad, you told me I wasn't the smart one all those times you branded me worthless. It pushed me to disprove you, even if it hurt." His face was a complicated mixture of pride and sadness as he gazed at me. "You did it for sure." I did agree. Yes, I did. And I felt at last that I no longer needed his approval as I stood in the building that was named after my business, encircled by the empire I had created. As the CEO of Vanessa Graves, I was a visionary and the mastermind behind my own success, and I would never again be referred to as worthless. Story 3. Lana said that your services were no longer needed. In our family's boardroom, her voice could be heard across the mahogany table. "Get your workspace organized by tomorrow." I look around at the faces, Executives fidgeting uneasily in their leather seats, board members raising their eyebrows, and that smug smirk of mine, my sister. I was all too familiar. She had been looking forward to this day for years. Is that all? Despite the rage that was simmering within, I asked in a calm voice. Indeed, Valerie. That'll be all, said Lana. She is already focusing on the following item on the agenda. I picked up my pen and notes, gave the board members a courteous nod, and left with my dignity untarnished. With a gentle click that belied the gravity of what had just transpired, the heavy door closed behind me. Connors and Tate Solutions. Our family firm, which I had assisted in transforming from a failing regional logistics provider to a national powerhouse, had dismissed me. I'm Valerie Connors, and I'm 43. And I was the Senior Vice President of Operations for the business my grandpa started until 10 minutes ago. I had been in charge of negotiating contracts, cultivating clientele, and organizing the transactions that generated the majority of our income for more than 10 years. Lana, on the other hand, concentrated on board member politics and business image. In Nashville, Tennessee, I had been the force behind our expansion. I made my way to my office, a corner I had earned over the years of hard work. When my assistant Natalie noticed my face, her countenance instantly became worried. Val. What took place inside? Before I could respond, I shut the door. I was dismissed by Lana with immediate effect. Tomorrow I have to leave. Natalie's jaw dropped. That is not possible for her. This location wouldn't exist without you. She is able to. She also did. I dropped into my chair, giving myself a brief moment of shock before my thoughts began to race. Dad appointed her CEO, and the board gave their approval. Now, it's her show. However, why more than 70% of our key clients have come from you? I gave a little smile. And that's exactly why I've been better than her for years. She was unable to tolerate it. But once the immediate shock subsided, an odd serenity descended upon me. I took a leather portfolio I had saved for just such a situation out of my desk drawer. Documents I had painstakingly produced over the last 5 years were within. Agreements, contracts, and court documents. Natalie, with a calm voice, I said, do you recall the reorganization I carried out 5 years ago? The one where I established a group for VC strategy. Her eyes grew wide with insight. Technically, all of the client contracts are held by your consulting LLC. I nodded, giving myself permission to grin for the first time since entering that board meeting. I believe it's time to remind my sister of who is the main source of business in this area. I had anticipated this for years. Despite her lackluster economic sense, Lana had always been preferred by our father, James Connors. She was attractive, had the necessary contacts, and above all, never questioned his authority. For a daughter in a conventional family company, however, I had too many ideas. Val, you're creating a stir. Every time I suggested a new course or efficiency, Dad would say, let's continue with what is effective. Evidently, what worked was allowing Lana to claim credit for my inventions, while I established connections with corporate clients, warehouse facilities, and shipping corporations throughout the Southeast. While I negotiated agreements that increased our profit margins by double digits every year, Lana served as the face of the industry at events. Using my statistics, Lana presented to the board. Our disagreements went beyond business. As a child, Lana was the sorority president, homecoming princess beauty queen, the epitome of poise and social grace. I was the practical one, more concerned with operational issues than with politics in the country club. Why are you unable to emulate your sister more? Not rudely, Mom would ask. She connects with people so effortlessly. They never got the fact that I connected with only different ones. I cultivated contacts in conference rooms rather than at cocktail parties. Clients eventually began to trust me because I concentrated on adding value, not Lana's professional presentations or the company's brand. When rumors of succession planning started to circulate 5 years ago, I took action with my lawyer's assistance. I founded the consulting firm VC Strategy Group LLC with just one customer, Tate and Connors. It appeared to be a tax efficiency measure on paper. It was actually my insurance coverage. We are flexible with this framework. When I suggested it, I told Dad, without all the corporate red tape, it enables me to bargain directly with clients. Unaware of its consequences, he gave his approval. Why would he doubt something that increased our profits, in his opinion? It wasn't the cornerstone of my freedom. It was just another one of my effective small repairs. I eventually moved all of my significant clientele to my LLC. If anyone wanted to look, they could see the papers. However, the contracts only identified Connors and Tate as the fulfillment partner with VC Strategy Group labeled as the principal service provider. Lana was too preoccupied with organizing the refurbishment of her CEO office to notice this. Everything had accelerated last month when Dad announced his retirement. They revealed the succession plan. I would continue in my operational position, effectively carrying out the task, while Lana had the title of CEO. Or so they believed. I got to work early the morning after I was dismissed in order to pack my office. Since most staff weren't expected for another hour, the facility was quiet. I had picked this moment on purpose. An audience is not required. My phone buzzed as I was packing up trophies and family pictures. It was our biggest client, Beth Winters from Skyline Distribution. "What's going on, Valerie? Your sister just sent me an odd email introducing herself as my new contact." I grinned to myself. "Beth, good morning. Indeed, a few things have changed. We have an arrangement with you, but Lana is the new CEO." Beth remarked, her voice betraying her bewilderment. "The VC Strategy Group has the contract. Is she aware of that?" "She hasn't looked over the contracts yet, I believe." I answered in a neutral tone. "Do you want me to ask her any questions?" "Do it, please." "We didn't sign with Tate and Connors. We signed with you. We are paying for your knowledge." I hung up and went back to packing. My heart is lighter now. 3 more significant clients had made similar calls by the time I was done. At 8:30 a.m., just as the office was starting to fill up with workers, none of them had any plans to work with Lana. Lana's name came up on my phone. I waited for it to ring twice before responding. "Hi, Lana. The client files are where she spoke in a tight, controlled terror. And why is Beth Winters claiming that she will no longer collaborate with us?" "The client files are in the same location as before." Calmly, I responded in the account-organized shared drive. Beth, on the other hand, is utilizing her contractual rights. "What are you discussing? Which rights are outlined in the contract?" She would look stunning in one of her spotless pantsuits as she stood in her new CEO office. Frustration caused her face to flush. "Lana, look at the contract headings. We have contracts with VC Strategy Group for all of our main accounts. Connors and Tate, my consulting firm, is only the fulfillment partner. I was chosen by the clients above the family brand." There was an overwhelming quiet on the other end. "You can't do this then." The chuckle that came out of me was unavoidable. Actually, I had already done so 5 years prior with the board's signature on each paper and Dad's consent. "It's sabotage." An octave was added to her voice. "No, Lana, it's business. Your goal was to become CEO. Well done. However, I own the connections, the trust, and the contracts that really generate income." Natalie had shown up at my home with a cardboard box filled with her personal items by the time I hung up. "I quit this morning," she said, grinning. I informed HR that I would be joining the VC Strategy Group with immediate effect. That's when the knowledge really hit me. Sweet retaliation against Lana wasn't the only goal here. I had the opportunity to create something that was really mine. After gathering my box, I took a final glance at the office where I'd worked for the previous 15 years. "Come on," I said. "We need to create a business." I called all of my important clients at my home office for the remainder of the day. I had verified my suspicions by the evening. I would have all 14 of our top-tier accounts following me. Together, they accounted for more than 80% of Tate and Connors' yearly income. What about satisfaction as Evergreen Supply Chain's Thomas Graham? "Val, you have the connections, but are you able to manage the day-to-day logistics?" Up until yesterday, the question seemed reasonable. I had access to Connor and Tate's software systems, warehouse network, transportation partners, and other infrastructure. I've been looking forward to this change for a while. I told him that I had previously partnered with 3 fulfillment sites in the region. There will be no pauses in your activities. I didn't let him know that those relationships weren't formalized until that same afternoon. In a rush of phone conversations, and hurriedly executed short-term contracts. As I flew the airplane, I was also building it. By 9 p.m., my laptop and empty pizza box and legal papers were all over my dining room table. I had Natalie, I had the clients, and I had an operational structure. A team was what I lacked. My phone buzzed with a text from our former operations manager, Jordan Ellis, as if he could read my thoughts. Heard the events. Lana is going crazy. The operations crew is half ready to walk. Are you hiring? Another text message arrived before I could reply. Lana gave this one. Board emergency meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. You must be present. I burst out laughing. Necessary! Only a few hours previously, she had dismissed me. I was suddenly essential. I responded to Jordan's SMS. Give me names, all those that are interested. All packages to Lana are competitive. I just answered. I'll bring my lawyer along. My phone rang right away. When it rang again, I put it on voicemail. At last, I responded. Valerie, this is not a request. Lana lost her temper. The board is interested in learning more about our clientele. You must explain yourself to them. I owe no one anything, I said calmly. Remember how you fired me? We no longer need your services. That's exactly what you said. That was prior to my comprehension of the contract's circumstances, the 5-year contracts that have been in effect, the ones that the board and Dad authorized. Those agreements, you purposefully mislead everyone. I inhaled deeply, suppressing my rage. No, Lana, I designed a business structure that safeguarded the clients and the organization. The fact that you never bothered to learn the true workings of our company is not my responsibility. You're to blame for it. For this, Dad will never forgive you. Although that was a low blow, it was anticipated. She had always relied on our father. Maybe. I've learned to live without his approval, though, unlike you. I hope your meeting tomorrow goes well. I hung up and sat quietly for a few minutes, allowing the day's stress to weigh on me. Had I prepared for this moment for 15 years? I had always known subconsciously that Lana would ultimately push me away. I hadn't intended for my LLC to be a weapon. It served as a safeguard, a means of preserving the worth I had accrued via family politics. Once more, my phone buzzed. Our father texted us. We must speak. Without responding, I put the phone down. He could wait till tomorrow to say anything. I had to concentrate on starting a business from scratch tonight because customers were already anticipating service. I didn't miss the irony. Lana had unintentionally given me the push I needed to break away by attempting to sideline me. I had spent years investing my skills in a business that would never be fully mine. I now had the opportunity to construct something that existed. I launched my laptop and entered the first line of a brand new business plan for full-service logistics solutions and VC strategy organization. It had a pleasant sound. There were a lot of developments the next morning. Jordan provided me a list of 8 workers that were prepared to start working with me right away by 7 a.m. In order to protect my interests, my lawyer Grace Levinson left at 7:30 for the Connors and State Board meeting. And by 8 a.m., I was holding my first staff meeting as the official CEO of VC Strategy Group, while seated in a makeshift office that I had managed to obtain overnight. It's a special case. I gave the brief explanation to the small group of people seated around a conference table. Although we are developing our infrastructure on the fly, we have the clientele and the experience. We have something that Tate and Connor no longer have, but it won't be simple. The connections that are important. Jordan and Natalie gave a confident nod. The others were anxious but resolute. They were primarily analysts and account managers who had accompanied Jordan. How about the contracts for the warehouses? Michael Perez, one of our logistics experts, was asked. The majority of the amenities in the area are exclusive to Connors and Tate's. They do. The reason we're not fighting on that front is because I accepted it. I've established alliances with Louisville and Chattanooga facilities. Until we are able to create our own local presence, we will route via them. When Grace called, the meeting was cut short. I placed her on the speaker. She reported that the board meeting had just concluded. It was controversial. Tell me. I motioned for the crew to remain. Lana attempted to claim that there was a breach of fiduciary obligation in your LLC structure. She desired that the board take legal action. Despite my faith in our legal position, my gut clenched, and the board completely silenced her. When the contracts were signed, it appears that 2 of the members had read them and knew exactly what they were authorizing. They reminded her that for 5 years, the structure had produced outstanding outcomes. I felt a wave of relief. No lawsuit then, no legal action. However, they did give her permission to counteroffer you. With a 5-year commitment, they hope to hire VC Strategy Group as a formal permanent contractor. They are essentially proposing to legitimate your existing partnership on better terms. I couldn't decide whether to scream or laugh. They offered to employ my firm after firing me. In essence, yes. In actuality, the deal is really good. 7 figures a year. Minimum performance bonuses are assured. They are in a grave situation. Val. They are, of course. Overnight, they lost 80% of their revenue source. I glanced around at my new crew, who were all observing closely. Inform them that while we're going forward with direct client interactions in the meantime, I'll consider their proposal. I hung up the phone and turned back to the team. We appear to have choices. Are you thinking about it, Jordan? Inquired, returning to them as a contractor with a worried look on his face. I could see why he was concerned. To join me, he just resigned his work. All of them had. Anything that excludes any of you is not something I'm thinking about. I gave them my word. However, it could be better to have Connors and Tate as clients rather than employers, while we establish our own business. A courier brought a heavy envelope, and the door of the makeshift office opened. It contained a handwritten message from my father and the official board offer. We've all been surpassed by you. Years ago, I ought to have appointed you CEO. I gazed at the message, feeling a range of feelings. After being ignored for decades, at last, my father had seen my worth. But only after I had proven that I was capable of destroying the business he had established. I was distracted from my thoughts by my phone's ringing. Lana texted me about it. It's not over yet. Naturally, it wasn't. Lana had never been the kind to take a loss well. In contrast, I wasn't concerned by her threats for the first time in our lengthy and complex relationship. The clients were mine. My crew was increasing. Most significantly, I had power. Over the next few weeks, a harsh new reality was developed. It turned out to be considerably more difficult than I had expected to start a business from the ground up, while still providing for current customers. Our temporary workplace became a command center of well-organized chaos as a result of our 14-hour workdays. To address the most important concerns of the day, an all-hands meeting was held at the start of each morning. We reviewed our accomplishments and areas that still need work at the conclusion of each evening. Although it was unsustainable, the speed was essential for survival. After 3 weeks, I was able to adequately reply to the board's offer. Before delivering my counter-proposal, I asked Grace to evaluate it. She read the terms and said, "This is aggressive. You're requesting twice their offer in addition to 5% stock in Tate and Connor." I clarified just enough to be heard, but not enough to incite animosity. Grace reclined in her seat. "Can I be direct, Val? This seems intimate. It is, of course, personal. They're related. I'm not saying that. Instead of choosing the greatest course of action for your organization, it seems like you're attempting to prove something." Her observation was painful because it was accurate. Was I trying too hard to get my message across? The first offer from the board had been substantial. It might be excessively hostile to double down. I admitted you were correct. Keep the equity request in place and change it to a 20% increase over their offer. For what we contribute, that is reasonable compensation. Grace gave a nod of approval. "Much better. How is your sister doing now? Since that text, she has been noticeably silent." The identical question had been on my mind. Lana's lack of response was unusual and worrisome. "She and I are meeting tomorrow." I acknowledged. "Only the 2 of us left the business. She asked for it. Would you like me to be there?" I gave a headshake. "There are some discussions that must take place without attorneys." I met Lana the next day in a tiny coffee shop that was equally close to both of our offices. When I got there, she was already sitting. Her face was unreadable. I sat down, and she replied, "You seem sleepy. Starting a business takes a lot of energy." I answered, If you had ever done it, you would be aware of it. My politeness was worn thin by weeks of tension, but it was a cheap hit. Lana refused to fall for it. She stirred her coffee and added, "I've been thinking about why you set up that LLC structure in the first place. Tell me, we were never trusted by you. Not me, no dad, not the board. Your personal safety net was always necessary." I thought about what she had said. Lana, trust must be earned. Dad elevated your efforts while ignoring mine for years. You took credit for my labor for years. What precisely was I meant to believe? We are related. I said, she said, as though that clarified everything. The reason family companies fail is because individuals mistakenly believe that family devotion equates to business acumen. I retorted, you were appointed CEO by your father because you are his daughter, not because you were the most qualified candidate or because you established a covert business to steal our customers. For what reason are you? This commercial talent is misinterpreted. Until you decided I was disposable, I established a framework that safeguarded the value I had generated, which you and Dad were pleased to enjoy. At last, Lana's facade broke. Do you want to know why I was appointed CEO by Dad rather than you? Because Val, you're vicious. It is demonstrated by this contract-related trick. To make a statement, you would burn down the entire business. I wasn't prepared for how hard her remarks struck. Did they see me that way, as someone who, out of spite, is prepared to ruin our family's legacy? I didn't set anything on fire. Silently, I said, when you fired me, you lighted the match. All I'm trying to do is avoid getting burned alive. Across the table, we gazed at one another. This moment of searing honesty was the culmination of decades of sisterly rivalry. What comes next? At last, Lana inquired. The key question was that one. I was standing in the foyer of our newest and biggest client, Kevin Mere Defense, 3 months after Lana had dismissed me. VC would be pushed by their contract. The yearly revenue of Strategy Group exceeded $40 million, which was almost twice as much as my team had made at Connors and Tate. As he showed me around their facilities, Edward Hughes, the procurement director for Kevin Mears, said, "Wow, what an impressive operation you've built in such a short time." We had a special starting place. I clarified that there was a well-established team with shown skill, although under a different name, and without the family turmoil. I understand. He looked at me knowingly. Valerie, the business community in Nashville isn't that big. Word spreads. I kept my grin professional. Every business has a history of development. Yes. We can't wait to collaborate with you directly. We need to revamp our supply chain, and your reputation for hands-on management is just what we need. I went back to our new permanent headquarters later that afternoon. They were a refurbished warehouse with open workstations, exposed brick walls, and private conference rooms that were named after our first 3-month-old clientele. Our workforce grew from 8 to 23. Jordan, hardly able to control his eagerness, greeted me at the entrance. Our counter-proposal was approved by the Connors and Tate board. For the next 3 years, we will be their main logistical partner. I had a range of complicated feelings, including contentment validation and a hint of sadness. Have they made an internal announcement yet, slated for the morning of tomorrow? Lana will have to inform the whole organization that their primary business function is now being outsourced to her sister's company. She must have had a difficult time swallowing the tablet. Jordan smiled. I've heard that she battled it all the way to the end. At last, she received a directive from the board to either accept the collaboration or step down. I let out a sigh. I can't get her to forgive me. Never. Are you concerned? The question was reasonable. Long before this commercial dispute, Lana and I had a shattered relationship. Nevertheless, this arrangement felt more definitive than straightforward corporate rivalry. I acknowledged that I care, but not enough to jeopardize the work we're doing here. For VC Strategy Group, the official announcement of our collaboration with Connors and Tate marked the beginning of a new stage of expansion. Considering that our old employer is currently our biggest customer, we were stable enough to seek rapid growth. I was dismissed by Lana 6 months ago. I ended myself getting ready for a meeting I never thought I would have. My dad had asked to have lunch with me alone at his favorite eatery. When I got there, he was already sitting. The stress of the company's near collapse had taken a toll. and I looked older than I recalled. As I sat down, he replied, "You look good, Val. You are suited for success." "Thank you," I said. I had no idea where this discussion was going. I was surprised when he went on, "I owe you an apology. In fact, a number." I gave him time to explain, so I waited. "I ought to have seen your abilities years ago. You ought to have been appointed CEO." As soon as I stood aside, he gave a headshake. Traditional thinking blinded me. Regardless of aptitude, the eldest kid receives the throne. Lana was strong. I offered, suddenly compelled to stand up for my sister. She did, but they weren't the best people to run the business. He gave me a straight glance. "We were all outmaneuvered by you. Under our noses, Val built your own safety net. I can't decide if I should be impressed or outraged." I smiled slightly and answered that both would be suitable. He paused before saying, "The board is considering a restructuring. They want you to return as CEO and not simply as a contractor for your business." I almost choked on Lana and my water. She moved up to the position of Chief Marketing Officer, her innate power. That would be unacceptable to her. She's done so already. He gave a conditional response. "What state hope the two of you manage to mend your relationship?" "Val, that's why I'm here. As the creator of the firm, not simply your father. Instead of working against one another, we need you both to cooperate." I took a moment to reflect on this surprising event. I'm not sure if it's feasible. Maybe not. However, isn't it worthwhile to try it? I wasn't certain. I couldn't foresee bridging the gap between Lana and me at this point, since it had widened so much. 6 months after starting my own business, I couldn't help but smile at the lit sign over our entrance as I walked out of our new offices on a cool fall evening. It had been a difficult but incredibly rewarding path from getting fired to creating a successful business. I had turned treachery into extraordinary success, and now we had 35 workers with multi-million-dollar contracts, including Connors and Tate as clients. The best part of my business narrative, in my opinion, will always be how my sister's attempt to push me aside ended up giving me the empire I so well earned. I knew I still had a lot more chapters to tell,